What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Works of Wisdom video where we provide common ground to bridge the gap between Sunday school and seminary school. And we got another Decoding Christanese video coming right at you, hot off the press. And the phrase of this video that we're going to go over is called Child of God. Now, you hear Christians all the time. Hey, I'm not going out drinking. I'm not watching that movie. I'm not hanging out after dark because I'm a child of God. I don't do that. But where did this come from? Where in the Bible does it say I'm a child of God? Where's the first time we see God mention anything about a child? Well, we about to go into it in Exodus. Let's get biblical. In the last video, we talked about covenant bearers. We talked about God being able to reset, choose many from the few, all of those concepts. If you missed the last video, please go back, watch it, right? But the last covenant bearer is going to be Moses. He's from the tribe of the Levites, and Moses is who God decides to talk to fulfill the promise that he made to Abraham, or at least a portion of the promise that he made to Abraham. So we're going to go and we're going to see what God said to Moses in Exodus. Exodus chapter 3, verse 6 through 10 says, "Moreover, he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God. And the Lord said, I have surely seen the oppression of my people who are in Egypt, and I have heard their cry because of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. So I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up from the land to a good and large land, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites and the Hittites and the Amorites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites. Now therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression with which the Egyptians oppressed them. Come now, therefore, and I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt." Now, if I'm going to paraphrase, I'm going to condense the rest. Please go back, read Exodus for yourself. Read Exodus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. That's going to show you everything you need to know, tell you everything you need to know about being children of God. But some things that pop up, I'm going to abbreviate. I'm going to point out some important things. So Moses goes, talks to Pharaoh. Pharaoh says no. God shows out, says, hey, I'm going to send 10 plagues, hardens Pharaoh's heart. Pharaoh then goes, fine, I'll let him go. Pharaoh changes his mind. He starts to chase Moses and the Israelites out of Egypt. God does a lot of miracles. He splits the Red Sea, pillar of fire, cloud of smoke in front and behind of Israel, etc. Then they get out to the wilderness. They escape Pharaoh. Awesome. The people, God's people, the children, they start worshiping a calf. God gives them 10 commandments. Moses comes down, says, let's say God gave them the law. Moses comes down with the 10 commandments, sees them worshiping the calf. He gets mad. He breaks them. God gives him another one, but Moses writes it. And he gives the law. Now, why is the law important? Because the law does a couple things. The first thing is that it codifies the Israelites as God's people, right? It gives them systems that are in place so that the Israelites can continue to function as God's people out in the wilderness. And then there's also like more laws that come in the book of Leviticus. This is how Israel ought to govern itself as a nation, or as a people of God, and as an ethnicity and as a nationality, how they should govern themselves. What does the law serve to do? So we talked about, we got to go back and we got to see we're moving forward. So refresh here. Problems with sin, okay? And we see that God is gracious, but sin still happens. And even after God reset, there's still sin in the world. So now God has claimed a child for himself, and he's put systems in place to account for that sin. Okay, so what is the systems? You got to sacrifice, because the consequences of sin is death. So you gotta make sacrifices so that you can stand in right standing with God. As long as Israel continues to make sacrifices for their sins and they follow the law, and when they break the law, they make those sacrifices, they're in the covenant with God as his children. Now, what happens next? So, like I said, Moses is a great story. He delivers the children, he delivers God's firstborn from Egypt to the wilderness. And God promised them land, but because of some situations, some issues, some of their own decisions, God has consequences for them, and they don't make it to the land. Not all the old people. The young bucks get in there. Joshua and Caleb, they get into the land. Joshua's a great guy. He takes over all of the land, or he takes over a good portion. He doesn't get all of it, but he takes over a good portion of the land that God had promised to Abraham when he said that I'll give this land to you, and I'll make you fathers of many nations. You'll bless the nation. I'll make you a father of a great nation. All that stuff. So Joshua's taking the land, and we still see some sin going on. We still see some sin multiplying. We still see some people causing some pain to the children of Israel. But what we see is, because like it's a closed system, like the people of Israel account for the sins of Israel, right? So it's no longer like the world. The world is kind of, the rest of the world is kind of doomed right now, because they haven't got to the point where Israel's blessing the world. The rest of the world is kind of doomed to whatever fate they find themselves in. But Israel's accounting for Israel's sins now. So that's cool. And Joshua gets there. He conquers a good portion of the land, and then Joshua dies. And after Joshua dies, we have a thing where Israel finds a new way to sin against God, and that they turn away from God. So God made this, he made this illustrious covenant where it's like, hey, if you do any of these things, if you break the law in any way, you gotta make sacrifices to remain in right standing with me, right? To remain in the image of God, to remain my child, you gotta make sacrifices just so like we can remain in relationship. And Israel, they just turn completely from God. Like when Joshua dies, they just turn from God, and God lets them be taken over by the world. He lets them experience the world. You guys from God, you turn from me, you want to go worship idols, go see what the fruit of these idols are. And Israel gets captured, they get subjugated, they get put into slavery, they get taken captive. And then God raises up a judge. And that judge would function as the image of God to draw them back to God, to draw the kids back to God, right? And draw them back to the system that God has created so that they can remain children, and so that they can remain in the promises of God, and they can remain in the covenant with God. But then when that judge dies, then Israel gets captured again. They turn from God again, and then God raises another judge. And the book of Judges is literally the same cycle over and over again. We're going to stray, God's going to raise a judge. We're going to stray, God's going to raise a judge. And they do that all the way until 1 Samuel. So that's when we see the child of God, right? That's when, so people say, I'm a child of God. What does that mean? Let's break it down in a practical sense. That means that I am in a covenant relationship with God, in which he has set up a system for me to remain in good standing with him. And as long as I participate in said system, I am his child. At this point in time, specifically in the Bible, in Exodus, that child title, right, is reserved only for Israel. There's no other nations that can be a child of God. It's literally just Israel. But God did promise that Abraham and his seed would bless the world, bless the other nations, be a blessing to the other nations. So that's a little foreshadow as well. If this video has helped you to be a better child of God, a better image of God, if it raised some questions, some comments, then I ask that you leave a like, comment, subscribe, and share this with your people. But above all else, have a good one.